the next morning rolls around, and our routine for Saturdays was pretty set. Um, Whether I was home or I was down in New Jersey. So Kenny was the type of person, if he said he was going to call you, he called. Like, he was that way from the day that we started seeing one another, like dating. Um, he was a man of his word. You knew what you were going to get with him. Um, if he said he was going to call you, he called. And if, he wouldn't say he wasn't going to call. So anyway, our schedule was pretty set. And so Saturday mornings, if I were home, well, it didn't matter. It didn't matter because the time was the same. So Saturday mornings, he would get up and he would get dressed and ready to go to work. He would be up at literally out of the house by 5:30. Of course, I'm not talking it. So at that time, I wasn't awake if I was home, and if I was in Jersey, I was definitely not awake. So if I was in Jersey and he got up, he would generally text to say good morning. If I was home, obviously he would just kiss me or whatever. Or probably I would be getting up to get ready to get myself together so I could be on the road by a certain time. And, excuse me, he then would text me to let me know that he was up, or that he was at work. And then by 8:30ish, he would have his first break, and he would usually call me because by that point I was definitely up. He would call me to say good morning. We would talk, and then he would be done with his break. He'd go back to work. They weren't allowed to have their phones inside the distribution center for obvious reasons. So he had to keep his phone in a locker. So I was thinking, so that 5:30 call, that 5:30 text message did not come. That 5:30 good morning text didn't come. By 8:30, there was no 8:30 call. And honestly, I wasn't really thinking anything at the time because I figured the man hadn't gone to work on Thursday. He hadn't gone to work Friday. I figured he'd work straight through. Like, he just figured, let me try to make up some of my time or whatever. So that was kind of how I was thinking. So I'm going about my day. I get dressed, go to church school, go to church. Church school started at 9. Church started at 10. By 12:30, church would be out. I think, church started at 10. Yeah, we'd be out of church and getting ready to start like choir rehearsal or something like that. I'm over the choir at my other music ministry at my church, or the Sacred Arts ministry at my church, and we would be getting ready to do rehearsal. And give or take, rehearsal would last for an hour after church. So you're talking about church being at 10. We'd probably be done by 12. Rehearsal being from 12 to 12:30 or 12 to 1. I had decided that I was going to that day either go to see Elijah's play, or I was going to go down to to Bayonne, to the shop where I got my hair done to see my girlfriend, my god sister who had just had a baby. She does my hair. She does my locks. Shout out to Shanye Walker Moore, actually Shanye Moore, and Charlie's Zeller, and Textures and Kinks. Y'all, so I told y'all I would be highlighting different businesses and books and music and stuff. And so if you're in the Bayonne area, just interjecting this, go to Textures and Kinks in Bayonne to do for your natural hair. Charlie does a great job. And Shanye at the time was still at the shop, and her second to the youngest son had just been born. And I wanted to see the baby. But I couldn't decide what I was going to do. So rehearsal happens, and rehearsal had to kind of be abbreviated, I think, because the musicians were going to a wedding that day. So I remember getting out of rehearsal, and normally the musicians And I, after rehearsal, we would grab lunch, and then everybody went their separate destinations, whatever. Um, but this particular day, they were going to a wedding. So, and my daughter, for whatever reason, because she would go with us to lunch sometimes too, but for whatever reason, my daughter this particular day, I think she was working or she had to do something. I don't think she wasn't even, no, she was going out of town. She was going out of town that day. And so she wasn't there. So it was kind of like, okay, Yolanda, what do you do? You're by yourself. What should you do at the church? Should you, wait, hang out, wait, go see Elijah's play later, or go down to Bayonne to, see the baby and Shanye? So I literally had started to drive to New York. And something said to me, I don't usually say something. I'm sure it was the Holy Spirit. The Spirit said to me, go to Bayonne. Now, mind you, it's past 12:30. This was the time that Kenny would usually have taken lunch. There's no 12:30 call. But because I'm so busy in the flow of the day, I didn't even realize at that time that the 12:30 call hadn't come. So I was just like, okay, it's cool. Like, whatever happens, it's cool because he's working. I'm sure he'll call call on his lunch. But because I was moving, I was in motion, I didn't realize that it hadn't happened, or that, whatever. And that doesn't make sense to me. Am I saying it? And it might not make sense to you, but I'm just pointing out that 12:30 came and we were in choir rehearsal. So it just wasn't even something that caught my attention. Until it was after rehearsal, and I was like, oh, okay, I haven't heard from him. Haven't heard from Kenny. He must really be working hard. Again, I wasn't able to pick up the phone and call him myself. So I'm continuing with the day, and Spirit says to me, go to Bayonne. Don't go to New York. And so I go to Bayonne, and I hadn't seen them in a while. And, just the other day, I think I was looking at a picture of me holding the baby. I remember holding the baby. And I'm there and just enjoying my friends, I hadn't gotten my hair done, but, I was just enjoying them. And so, we're talking and, doing what we do. And 6 o'clock rolls around. And it's close to the time. Well, it's approaching 6 o'clock, and which is close to the time for Kenny to get off. He's going to get off at 6. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to hear from him at 6 for sure, because he's getting off of work now. He's finished the day. There's no reason for him not to call, whatever. And he is clockwork. So if he got up at 6, you could promise by the time he got to his car, I would have been on the other end of that phone. 6 o'clock rolls around. There's no phone call. So I'm like, this is weird. By 6:15, there's still no phone call. And now I'm really starting to get nervous, because I'm like, this is not like him. Like, what's really going on? And you kind of start thinking all kinds of thoughts. My mind definitely didn't go to any type of calamity or this. At most, it just kind of went to like, he's hanging out, or I don't know. So I say to the girls, I'm like, okay, it's 6:15. Can you have them call me? That's weird. But 6:30 rolls around, still no call. So now let me go back. Let me go back. 6 o'clock rolls around, no call. I'm not the kind of person. I don't hound people. Even if I'm in a relationship with you. Like, if you say you're gonna call me, I'm not that person that's gonna sit by the phone and wait. And I'm saying this. How can I make my point? He's my husband, right? So of course I'm waiting for him to call. My point of saying it that way, I'm not like tripping. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm not tripping, right? That he's not calling me. Like I'm not on some, you know, where he at, like, or sitting by the phone, like feeling some kind of way because he hasn't called. That wasn't at all what it was. But by 6:15, I'm calling him because I'm like, this is not like him, and I haven't heard from him all day. So I call him at 6:15, and I don't get an answer. Now I really, really start to get nervous, and I'm like, this is definitely weird. There's something off. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. By that point, I'm thinking, at best he left his phone home. He forgot his phone and it's off. That was again the most I was thinking. So I tell the girls, I'm like, this is not like Kenny. I don't know what's going on. He's not, picking up the phone. He hasn't called me. I was like, they were like, oh, he's probably doing something. I don't know what they said. Don't remember. Because my mom was like, this is not right. 6:30. So I'm kind of giving it like 15-minute intervals before I act or do something. So by 6:30, there's still no call. And I call again. I'm not sure if I called in between the 6:15 mark and 6:30, but I called him at 6:30. No answer. I'm like, this is crazy. So I told them, I'm like, y'all, something's not right. Something's off. I don't know what it is, but Kenny's not answering the phone. It's not like him. Like, he doesn't do this. Like, when you know your spouse or you know your children, someone's pattern, like, you just know. I never got a knowing in here that something was off. I just knew something wasn't right with him not calling. Like, I never got a knowingness in here until much later. And so I told them, I said, okay. So we left the shop. Everybody had gone. We went to get dinner. We went to Charles's house, apartment to eat dinner. We're eating and we're chilling, and I'm trying to, I'm keeping it light, not trying to worry. And I said to them, I said, okay, y'all, by 7:00, if I haven't heard from Kenny or haven't spoken to him, I'm going to have to go home. Like, I'm going to have to go and find out what's going on. And I had to make the choice or the decision of whether or not I was going to go back to my mom's, which is in Hackensack, to pick up my clothes, because I was planning to stay the entire weekend, to pick up my clothes and then go up to Pennsylvania or go straight from Bayonne. So to make it plain, I would have had to drive out of the way to go back to my mom's. Not like Bayonne was closer to my house. It's just that in terms of, like, Bayonne will be on this side of 95 or the city or whatever. Not the city, be on this side of the globe, let's say, and Hackensack was on this side. So, and in Pennsylvania was here. So it would mean that I would have had to drive back over here to Hackensack and then go here and then drive back up that way. That's not really making plain what I'm saying, but I think you get the gist of what I'm saying. It would have been Hackensack. Going to Hackensack would have taken more time off of the time that I really should have been driving home. So I was like, okay, 7:00 rolls around, no call. I call and I'm calling. By this point, I'm calling every few minutes. I'm calling, I'm blowing up his phone, because I'm not understanding why he's not answering. Like, this is off. This doesn't make sense to me. By this point, I'm like, again, Kenny Clockwork, he didn't hang out. Like, he had people that he knew up there, but he didn't have friends in Pennsylvania like that he hung out with or anything like that. He, like me, was a homebody, so his routine was pretty set and pretty standard. So it would take him literally only 30 minutes to get home. And so by 6:30, I knew, okay, this man's not home. He's not calling me. By 7:00, now it's a whole hour since he's been out of work and he's not called me. What in the heck is going on? I gotta go. Like, I have to go. That was like urgent. And I just said to myself, well, worst case scenario, I'll get home and I'll just stay home. I'll get home and, find out what's going on with him, and then I'll drive back down the next day to get my clothes, and then go see the show on Sunday or whatever. Well, I get on the road and I'm driving. It was raining, and I remember I was binge watching Lost. I never watched Lost before. And I was binge watching Lost, and I was trying to distract myself. So I put Lost on, and I was, watching. And as I'm driving, it's stormy. It was raining, and I drive like I drive. I got lead foot. Let's just put it that way. So it generally would take us an hour, give or take, to get home. Or an hour and 15 minutes, not even an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes to really like on a regular if you're driving normally. But for me, I could do it in an hour max. Because nine times out of 10 be driving 80 all the way up there. And if the road was open, forget about it. There was traffic. And at the time I drove a Jeep. Was it a Liberty? Yeah, I think it was a Liberty. It was a stick, my little red Jeep Liberty. It was a stick. Yes, I know how to drive a stick. My first car was a stick, and at the time I liked stick shifts. Not so much now because, it's just a lot, being in traffic and all that stuff like that. But so if you know anything about a stick shift, there's usually a lot of space. There's just space. And so in a truck, you have your seat, you have this area here, which is where your gear shift is, and then the next seat. So there's nothing really to rest your arm on or anything like that. And I'm used to, because I drive stick, I'm used to driving with one hand. So 9 times out of 10, I'm usually, driving like this or whatever. And so I'm driving, and again, periodically calling. My heart is beating a mile a minute. Like it's just, and I had to literally tell myself, you gotta calm down. Like, you gotta calm down. You just gotta calm down. And then at one point, I realized like my hand was like just like resting on the passenger seat, which is weird because the extension or the distance between my seat and the passenger seat would be put my arm, if you can see it, would put my arm like, like that, resting. Not necessarily the most comfortable position, but for me driving a stick 9 times out of 10, I would rest my hand on the gear shaft. Again, because I don't think there was a middle console. I don't remember, maybe there was. But in any case, I realized that my hand was resting on the passenger seat. And when I realized that, I was like, okay, that was weird. And in that moment, remember I said to you, we're spirit beings having an earthly experience, right? I've always believed that. I've been saying that anytime I teach or any of that for years. And I remember not too long prior to this particular day teaching at church about being spirit beings and making that statement. And I remember making the statement that, I believe that our God is so powerful that because we are spirit and because we've always been spirit, that we have the capability or the potential to know things in the spirit, either as they're happening or before they happen. And I think I was relating to maybe, someone passing away or something like that at the time. And I very, 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 very much believed that. I believed that. I still believe it. I believe it now more than anything. So in that moment when my hand is extended and I realize it's extended, and this is all in the book, by the way. This is how basically the book opens, telling this story. And I realized in that moment that my hand is reached over there, and I hear, my spirit hears, and notice I said my spirit hears I'm fine, but I'm not okay. I'm fine, but I'm not okay. I immediately knew, and when I say I mean my spirit immediately knew that Kenny, what had happened. My spirit knew that he was no longer in the physical realm because of the statement that was made. I felt like his spirit was right in that chair telling me I'm fine, but I'm not okay, to prepare me. Um, After that statement was when my heart rate slowed. I calmed down a bit, and I think at that point I still had like a half an hour to go to be home. And so, even in knowing that, even in hearing that, my flesh, me, the human side of me, did not want to receive any talk, any possibility of what the reality was. So I'm still calling, and nothing. So I finally get into town. I don't know. I think my mom must have called me to see, to see. I don't know. Now, you know what? I'm thinking about this. I don't know. I must have, I must have acquainted my mom with what was going on. I must have I had to have, I don't remember, but I do remember my mom calling or me calling her. And as I'm pulling into town, we live literally not even 5 minutes off of the highway. And she was on the phone with me, and I'm tearing around those corners. Like, it would be like you get off the highway and drive down the street, you make a left, make a right, and make a left, and then you're home. Or make a right and you're home. That was how quick it was to my house. So I'm tearing around those corners, and I'm approaching the house. We lived in townhomes or duplexes, so you couldn't see our physical house from the street. So I pull around to the parking lot where I had to park. And when I pulled into the parking lot, I see his car in the same space that it was in the day prior. And that kind of gave me some relief because I'm like, well, okay, great. Thank God. Whatever's happened, at least he's home. And he's home safe. So I get up, I get out of the car, and I think I left my purse in the car. I grab my keys and then grab my phone and run to the house. Because by this point, of course, I know something's wrong. But I just didn't expect it to be what it was. So I'm on the phone with my mom, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to walk into the house. Now, it's interesting because I know now that I wanted to get off the phone with my mom because, again, my spirit knew the truth. My spirit knew what was going to happen, and I didn't want my mom being an hour away from me. I am an only child, her only child, to hear my reaction and not be able to do anything in that moment. I didn't want that. I didn't want that for my mom. So I said to her, Mommy, I'm going to call you back. I'm at the house. I'll call you back. So I run to the door. Our door, it was a front door, but the back door was like on, you could see the back door, on the back door, kind of faced the side street, I think. I don't remember. In any case, no, the back door faced the back street. I'm in the front door, and we had one of those doors that the top has a window, and we never put a valance on top of it. So I could look up in the window and I could see upstairs. Like as soon as you look up, you could see straight upstairs into straight upstairs. You could see the stairs, the staircase in the inside of the house. Um, and you could just see if there's any lights upstairs. You couldn't really see our bedroom or anything, but I looked up and it was dark. I didn't see anything. I didn't see any lights. And then I opened the door. And when I opened the door, the light, when you opened the door into our home, you were right in the kitchen. And the stove above the kitchen, the light above the kitchen stove was on. And it had not been the day before. And so it at least let me know that since I had left the house, there had been some activity happening downstairs, so on and so forth. So I start calling to him. I'm like, babe, where are you? You know, babe, Kenny, you know, whatever. I'll go tearing upstairs, running upstairs. And he liked to always have the fan going. Winter, summer, spring, fall. Love to have the fan going. And we had a ceiling fan. So I'm hearing the ceiling fan going. And I'm also hearing the regular fan going. I flip on the light because it's dark upstairs. There's no light. There's no hall light. The bedroom light is off, but I'm yet hearing this fan. So as I'm kind of approaching the stairs, I'm like, okay. Like honestly, I thought at most that I was going to get to the house and he had fallen, you know, let's say possibly a stroke or something, or fell and couldn't get to the phone. And that was it. Like, that is really what I thought at most it was going to be. And then when I got upstairs and I flicked the light on and I see my husband laying on the bed on his back, with his eyes open, looking straight up. And at the time, even though, like I said in here, I knew, he was laying on the bed, and I don't know how to describe it. Let me see if I can turn this way. This is not going to help. But in any case, so he was laying on the bed. So like, let's say I'm laid all the way back. His arm was up like this. So mind you, you know, you're laying on the bed. You're laying flat and your arm is up like this. Or up like this. Like, so only this part of his arm was on the bed. And so I thought that that was a sign of life. Because I've never in my life in a million years, ever, and I've not seen a lot of dead bodies, but even trying to lay on the bed and fall asleep, your body's gonna go limp. Like there's like nothing physiologically makes sense to what I saw. His arm being up like that. And so I thought he was still alive. I ran over to him and he was gone. His arm was so stiff. I mean, I grabbed his arm because I was like, I'm here, babe. Like, you know. And he was cold to the touch. And it just didn't make sense. I couldn't process in that moment. Like, hey, what? Like, again, seeing his arm, I'm like, okay, if it happened, it just happened. Like his arm is up. Like, what's happening? Like, it did. My brain, even to this day, it still doesn't make sense to me that his arm was up like that in the natural. It doesn't make sense. I have since come to a understanding in the spirit and in the spirit realm of what probably or could have probably been happening. Again, spirit beings having an earthly experience, but he was gone. He was gone, and I climbed up on the bed and I whispered in his ear. I just said, you can rest now. Because I knew that this man had gone through a lot of different things in his life. Some things that when I do tell the story, I will share, and some things I won't. But I knew that he had a hard way, a hard way. And by this point in his life, I think that he was just kind of getting to the place where he was at peace with where his life was. Yeah. I mean, nothing was perfect, right? Life wasn't perfect. We didn't have the perfect marriage. We had our stuff, we'd been together for years. We've been together for 17 years. So we were trying to figure it out, trying to live, trying to learn how to be married and live with our stuff, live with our baggage that we both brought into the marriage individually and collectively, to be honest. And there's just certain things that I will never, ever share out of honor for him. But I got up on the bed and I told him, you can rest now. And his eyes were open, and it wasn't like in an eerie way. It was just like he was looking up so peacefully. And I had somebody tell me, interestingly enough, like, well, that was how I wanted to see him. I'm like, no, like, I'm a realist. Oh my God, y'all, I'm a realist. I'm a realist. I don't try to sugarcoat anything for myself. I'm harder on myself, I think, than maybe I might be harder on someone else. So I'm not going to try to sugarcoat stuff for myself just to appease my feelings or whatever. I'm telling you, this man, the way he was looking up, and my perspective is that he saw heaven. He saw God. He saw his godmother, the woman who raised him. So I believe with him laying back on that bed, he was reaching out. I always used to hear people say, there's this book that I read, and there's actually a movie called 90 Minutes in Heaven. And if you get a chance to read it or watch the movie, I think it's probably on one of those like Tubi or Freevee or something like that. Really, really, really good movie about this man who died, not was near death, like died, and was gone for 90 minutes. I might watch that again. Died and was dead for 90 minutes. He had a car crash and was dead for 90 minutes and was in heaven and was able to come back and speak about his experience. And I believe that Kenneth Kelly, I won't say what his nickname used to be or the name he went by in the group. Oh, Lordy. Because I don't cuss, but it was a curse word. I believe he got a glimpse. There's something that happens in the spirit realm. And Kenny was a babe in Christ by this point. He had just given his life to the Lord right before we got married. Now he grew up in the church and unfortunately experienced some hurt by the church, by people in the church, not by the church, by the people in the church, that caused him to stay away from organized religion for years. And I'm bringing this point up because I know that there are a lot of people out there that feel that way. They don't go to church because they don't believe in organized religion and et cetera, et cetera. And it was hard because, our our faiths or our beliefs clashed. But I loved him and I didn't give up on him. And then he did. He gave his life back to the Lord or to the Lord. And so I remember maybe 2 weeks or a week before he passed away, coming to the house and he was like, babe, like he was like teary, and he didn't really cry in front of me or anything like that. But he was like teary. He said, I had such an amazing time in the presence of the Lord. Like, he was like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, and that's how he was. He was at a loss for words. He was like, I've never experienced anything like that. Again, the experience of connecting back with our source. Spirit. God is spirit. We are spirit. And so what I believe is that he got a glimpse of what it would be like what it would be like to be in heaven in the presence of God. I believe that. Or he got a glimpse of some loved ones that went before him. But either way, he made his choice. And I say it that way because I'm a believer that our spirits get to choose ultimately whether we stay or we go. And I know some people aren't going to believe that, but my aunt and pastor always says, and I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but I'll paraphrase it. But she says, I think they had a conversation. There's something they came in agreement or something, or they talking about the person and God. They came into agreement, or they had a conversation that day that was going to be their last day. I believe it. I believe that. I think that happens if, there's no possibility for the person to get well, or no possibility for them to get better. In Kenny's case, he had high blood pressure, and he died of a heart attack. Yeah, he died of a heart attack. And so, of course, I've thought about what his last moments were. And it's interesting because, again, I'm a realist. I want to know the truth. Like, don't tell me something just because you think it's the thing to say, or what was professional to say. What I mean is, I was told that he didn't suffer, and he went suddenly. And I'm okay with that if that's what I was told. But part of me, with just how he looked, I feel like there was a moment. Again, the only other person that saw him laying there with his arm like that was my mom. So she knows his eyes, and he was so peaceful. And it was almost as if he just took and that was it. He didn't look distressed. He didn't look labored. None of that, which is, again, why I thought there was life there when I got there. So something happened. He had an encounter that I believe took his breath away. And, I'm sure he was having a heart attack, and laid back on the bed. And God took him, out of his suffering. Yeah. And I'm sure if he could have stayed, he would have. But again, I think I think very, very heavily, and it's not just with him. This is with other people too. I think when people get a glimpse of home, because remember, we're spirit beings having an earthly experience, so we're spirit first, and then we come into this physical realm. And I think when people get an experience of the of home, because I can't, y'all. I'm sorry because there's so many, I can't give all of the information here, but in terms of that, it's like we came to Earth. We were spirit beings. We came to Earth through our moms, whomever they were. And I think the longer you remain on Earth, the more we come to Earth. We still have recollection of the spiritual or heavenly experience. That's why I think with babies, you see babies looking in corners and laughing and kiki and then whatever. And you're like, what are they looking at? Because they're just coming into the spirit realm. I think that they still can sense and see the very things, their friends, the people that they were, in the spirit realm with. And then the longer that we remain in this physical realm, we forget that because of our humanness and because of the fall of man. I'm not here to teach that right now, but I'm just telling you what I believe to be. And so the longer we're here, even if we come to understand or connect back with God or connect back with spirit by the renewing of our minds and give in salvation and connect that, connect that to our source spiritually while we're in the earth, becoming born again or whatever the case may be. Because I know that there are people on here that have different faiths, but as far as I'm concerned, I am a believer. I'm a kingdom citizen. And again, being a kingdom citizen, we're spirit. We come down here. So we as kingdom citizens or ambassadors have an understanding of what that looks like, what that feels like. And when we come down here because of the fall of man, we're detached. I'm going to put a pin in that. But once we reconnect to the source, once we give our lives back to the Lord and we connect back to the spirit source, we start to gain understanding again of what the spiritual experience is and should be like. And so again, once you once a believer gets a glimpse of home, and I think they get to choose whether they want to stay or they want to go. And I think Kenny chose to go, and it's okay.